You there.
Hello, welcome. I'm so glad you joined me because this is one of my favorite subjects. Today we're going to be talking about intercultural communication. I will also talk about an Emirati adventure I had. So, before we begin, I'd like you to think about culture. Do you think it has anything to do with communication? Do you think that different cultures speak or communicate differently? I'm not talking about language. I'm talking about how people use language to communicate. So it's not the difference between French and English and Chinese. It's the behavior and the thinking behind that culture. So I'd like to begin. Let's talk about some facts. 1. Culture is learned. It's not something you are born with. For example, in the UAE, when people are talking, actually all Arab people that I've listened to, they often use the word inshallah, mashallah, hamdulillah. All of these words have the word Allah in the middle of them. When they're very surprised or happy about something, they might even say Allah like this. So they do this because they've learned to use that kind of language, and it also shows their culture that God, Allah, is the most important part about their culture. I think that's beautiful. I'm Canadian, and oftentimes in my culture, we have work and friendship. When we're in a work situation, we think, okay, let's get the work done first, and then we can hang out. But then when I went to China, that same work friendship is a little bit different. First, it's, hey, let's get to know each other, let's build our relationship, and then let's get to work. And so you can see how culture is learned. It's not something you're born with. And if you don't understand each other's cultures, it can lead to miscommunication. So, first point, culture is learned. It's not something you are born with. Number 2, culture is an invisible force. Let me explain it this way. Culture is like an iceberg. There's the part that you can see, the visible behaviors, and then there is also the invisible sources. Let's talk about the visible sources first. If you look at someone and look at their clothing, or look at the food they're eating, or the language they're speaking, you might think, oh, that person I bet is from India, or I think that person is from Ethiopia. However, underneath the surface, those are the things that you can see about culture, but it's only the tip of the iceberg. That's just a little part of your culture. The driving force, the biggest part of your culture is who you are, and that is invisible, especially to yourself. So the invisible parts are your values, your beliefs, your assumptions. When someone says, why do you think this way? You think, just because I do, and I think I'm right, because it's your culture, it's how you behave, because your culture has taught you that. All right, so does it mean that your culture is wrong? No, absolutely not. It just means that each culture is different, and we have different ways of behaving, of communicating, because of our culture. And I want to tell you a story today about how culture is invisible. And I'm going to do that by telling you the story of my Emirati adventure. In 2006, I arrived in the UAE, and I wanted to get to know the culture, very much so. I'd read some books, but now I really wanted to understand the culture. So what do you think I did? I went to class, and I had a class of 20 young women, and I said to them, hey, who wants to invite me to their house this weekend? And there was dead silence. And then shortly after, the next day, a young lady named Reem Al-Murar, she came into the class and she said, Miss, my family would like to introduce you to our culture. You're welcome to visit us in Liwa this weekend. And I went, wow, okay. First thing I just learned is that you need to ask permission from your parents in order to do something, even if you are 18 or 19 years old. So I went, oh, that's interesting. First thing that I learned. Now, thank you so much to the Al-Murar family. If anyone knows of Rima Al-Murar, who went to Zayed University in 2006 and started in 2006, I would love to contact her again because I'm so thankful for this experience that I'm about to tell you. So let me begin. I said to Reem, "Oh, Liwa, what street is that on? Or can I take a taxi?" And she said, no. It's far, miss. It's about 2 or 3 hours away. Don't worry, my driver will pick you up. Ooh la la, a driver, I was thinking. I feel like I'm Cinderella. So that was my first introduction to Emirati culture, that drivers often drive families around. So sure enough, on Friday, the driver arrived, and before I met the driver, I went to the store and I bought a really nice fruit basket. It was a nice fruit basket, pineapples, oranges, apples, bananas. It was nicely wrapped, and I was very proud of this fruit basket. I thought, ooh, the family's really going to like this gift. Anyway, we got in the car and we drove to Liwa. Myself, my husband, and my little boy at the time, who was about 1.5 years old. And we arrived in Liwa, and this lady came out and took my fruit basket away. I was like, oh, she just took my gift for the family. And I thought, this is very strange, but okay. And then Reem came out of the house to welcome us, and my husband and I started walking towards the house to meet Reem. And I knew the culture enough to know, like, don't show any physical affection. So my husband and I were not holding hands, and we were walking towards Reem to go into her house, and she says, "Oh, miss, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. Come inside, but your husband, he can use that door over there." And I went, "Oh, okay. I'll see you in 5 minutes, sweetheart." And I did not see him for the rest of the day. He was gone. I was just with the women for the rest of the day. I have no idea where my husband went. Anyway, we went into the house, and there is my fruit basket. And I feel such shame because my fruit basket looks tiny compared to these massive, beautifully wrapped fruit baskets and chocolates and dates. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is a completely different level of hospitality than that I've ever witnessed before. Anyway, I sat down with Reem and her mother and this other lady who had a big coffee pot and little cups, little round cups like that. And she would come around and she would fill up our coffee cups, little ones. In America, we would think they were shot glasses. And so I drank the coffee, and she filled it up again. And I drank the coffee, had some dates, and she filled it up again without me even asking. Filled it up, filled it up, filled it up every time I drank it. And I looked at Reem finally and I said, "Oh, Reem, I cannot drink any more of this coffee." And she's like, "Oh, miss, if you're finished, just do this with your cup." Oh, that's interesting. Now, after this, we went into a very large room with a huge chandelier and no furniture really. There were like little mats all the way around this massive room where ladies were sitting and talking, and they wanted to introduce me to Emirati culture. So they put me in some fantastic clothes with these funny white pants underneath this, what we called a kandora. And then they brought some fire out. It was like this pot with fire and smoke coming out. Well, you didn't see the fire, but it was like coals burning. And they said to me, "Oh, put your hair in this." I was like, "Oh my goodness, no way am I going to burn my hair." And I'm like, no, you don't put your hair in it. You take the smoke and you put it into your hair to make your hair smell nice. That was something else that was new to me. I had no idea. Anyway, this is where it really got interesting. It was time to eat. And I wonder, when you start eating with your family, are you ever nervous? No, because it's so natural to you. And this is where I'm showing you how invisible your culture is to you. I was terrified. They said, "Miss, come, it's time to eat." And I thought, oh, we're going to go to the dining room. No, the food came to us. The housemaids, there were about 3 housemaids, and they carried this massive plate of rice, like a huge mountain of rice with a big piece of meat over it. I mean, it looked like a dinosaur leg over the mountain of rice. And they brought it, carrying it, like 3 women carrying this big plate of rice, and they put it in the middle of the room on the floor. No chairs, no tables, on the floor. And then they said to me, "Yalla, miss, go eat." How? I don't know what to do. I have no idea what to do. Do I eat first because I'm the guest? Should I wait for the grandmother because she's the eldest? Should I wait for Reem because she's my host? Should the children eat first? I have no idea what to do. So I followed my little cultural rule, and that is whatever the grandmother does, you can do it too. So I went and sat beside the grandmother, and I smiled at her, and she grabbed a plate, and then she just put rice and rice and rice and rice and rice and rice and made a big plate of rice for me. And then she took her hand and grabbed a piece of meat right off of the piece of meat that was over the rice and put it on my plate. I was so surprised that she would actually touch my food, but I didn't say anything because I was just so thankful to be in that environment. And Reem said, "Miss, would you like us to get you some forks or some spoons?" And I said, no, I just want to try whatever you are doing. I want to try it too. So I watched the grandmother. The grandmother takes a little bit of rice, and she takes some hummus, and she takes a few little side dishes, and she makes a little package with her hand like this, pops it in her mouth. And I went, okay, I'll try that too. So I tried to do the same thing, and there's rice falling down, and I don't know if you just noticed something, but I was just using my left hand because I am left-handed. And Reem, bless her heart, she says to me, "If you can, miss, try not to use your left hand. It's kind of like for using the bathroom." I'm like, oh, okay. So I started trying to eat with my right hand, and it was a mess. Anyway, in my culture from Canada, my job when I go to someone's house to show appreciation is to eat everything on the plate. If I like it, eat it. If I don't like it, eat it. It shows appreciation to your host. So remember, I had this massive mountain of rice, and I'm eating and I'm eating and I'm eating and I'm eating, and I'm so full, and I'm eating and I'm eating, and I'm like sweating because I'm so full. And I finally finished my plate of food, and the grandmother looks at me, and you know what she does? She grabs my plate and puts more rice on my plate. Oh my goodness, it was an amazing experience, and I had a marvelous time getting henna and talking with the family and sharing the cultural experience with this family. And it was just wonderful to be so welcomed by the family and to learn so much about the culture. So why did I tell this story? Why? Because if there is an Emirati audience watching me right now, everything I'm saying is true. And to them, it is very normal. It's an everyday experience. It's invisible to them. But for me, it was completely new. And so by me telling this story, it helps people understand how invisible their culture is to them. And the only way you can really learn about your culture is getting outside of your culture, traveling to another place and learning about new people. Or another way to do that is in the workplace, or at school, or in your own city. Find people who have grown up in different cultures and talk to them, because it's so valuable to learn about different cultures. You're going to be exposed to different ways of thinking, different assumptions. And when you understand that, you can have a very rich and engaging communication, and that makes workplaces, school environments better, and people will thrive together. So once again, thank you so much to the Almurar family who took me to Liwa in 2006. It was a story that I will never, ever forget. Thank you.